I could see being $1 million per year. But not all of that, the Scientific Steering Committee. $200,000 to that committee to operate at its meetings, $200,000 for a secretariat, and a substantial investment in the taxonomic community to allow these meetings of taxonomists that will help advance the identification of specimens. We need to flow more money to the taxonomic community if we're going to see this work advance. The national committees, the membership would be flexible. Perhaps some national committees would decide they can operate most efficiently with 4 or 5 individuals. Other committees may want, I think it would be for the nation to decide how large the national committee should be. But as a budget figure, it seemed to me that given that most travel is local, that perhaps this could be done for about $40,000 per nation per year. And then finally, the board of directors, this independent, 5 independent experts, 3 central node funding representatives, the scientific director and the iBOL executive, 2 meetings a year, and a budget perhaps $200,000 a year for that organization. And if you multiply that by 5, $10 million have disappeared. And finally, to look a little bit like Karen's thing, little spokes as opposed to one more layer on the egg, Karen. What is this? What sorts of things is IC going to do? We're going to work on all groups of eukaryotes. We're not going to forget the protists. We're not going to forget fungi or plants, even though they're lagging a bit, John. I have a feeling you guys are going to complete the task of barcoding world's flora before we do the world's animals. You'll soon be able to say we're ahead of those damn animal people. And animal diversity. So the eukaryotes of the world, leave aside the bacteria and archaea for now. Let's do them in the second pass. And what sorts of issues and what relevance? And I had a brief conversation with Richard Lane at lunch, in which he said there's a very strong appetite for the service that we're delivering to society, identifications, in contexts like invasive species suppression, ecosystem monitoring, biodiversity conservation, marketplace regulation, and of course this technology angle. Partitioning the work, I think we would see collection databases, all 3 levels of nodes participating in this effort. Curation and identification, all 3 levels of nodes participating in this effort. Sequencing, the big sequencing efforts happening in the central nodes and the regional nodes. And as Dan has often pointed out, this is nothing but Kodak processing plants. There's no glory in running one of these things. They're simply, the glory is in this and down here thinking about the results. The informatics, perhaps largely in the central nodes, but as mentioned, reaching out into the other layers. And finally, data access and analysis, everyone on the planet, and certainly those people that are involved in the project. So very inclusive here, very inclusive there, maybe less inclusive in some of the other steps simply for cost effectiveness reasons. Is it feasible? You're going to hear a lot more about whether it's feasible or not after coffee, but as I try to just do a little bit of thinking about this, and Frank Bisbee sort of, he indicated, we had a little brief talk a couple of weeks ago on the number of people that he's managed to engage in Species 2000 ITIS. Several thousand taxonomists around the planet. And I thought if we could only build a community of 1,000 interested researchers that want to get involved in collections, identifications, and curation. 5 million specimens and 500,000 species all of a sudden parses down to just 500 species per individual over 5 years to identify. If you recruit a large enough community, this project is very doable from the standpoint of collections, ID, and curation. And I think from the curation standpoint, it's worth remembering the billions of specimens that lie in museums today. This is a very tiny increase in the pressure on those collection facilities. Sequencing 5 million specimens, can we do that? Of course we can do that. That's the trivial part. Ventnor's operation could sequence 10 times this amount of work in 1 year. So our little facility in Guelph could do over the 5-year period half of this sequencing. So the sequencing is not going to be a problem, I think. Storing barcode records, the 5 million records, the funding that we have currently within Guelph has the capacity to store 10 million records. So we're not going to fill the bold servers. Even with this effort, we need to mirror them, we need to move them out, but this local facility could deal with that. And new technologies, I'm not sure what $20 million would buy us in terms of point of contact and massive screens, but I'm actually pretty confident that massive screens is something we can deliver very early in this exercise. And Genome Canada has shown some interest in helping us look at this technology in the very near future. Linkages. Who would do what? There's an awful lot of people interested in biodiversity on the planet. It seems to me that national committees are the organization best positioned to reach out to the national agencies that are involved in agriculture, fisheries, forestry, health, parks, and the private sector. We've done this in Canada. There's a high level of recognition now in those agencies that barcoding is important. I think that model could be expanded to other nations. iBOL has a tremendously important role to play in reaching out to the higher level of international activities. There will be no substitute for that. The biodiversity agencies, biodiversity management agencies, conservation, human health, genomics, species lists, iBOL has been doing a superb job on building these linkages, and of course it should continue its good work. In Canada, we've set a target. It's the first time in my life I've sat in a meeting and the government agencies that were there said, your request in Canada is too low, you'd better double it. So we're going to try and see if we can raise $50 million within Canada. There are a number of agencies that could be interested. NSERC has provided us more than $4 million in the past and $5 million in the past, and they've indicated they want to stay involved. So we'll be certainly talking to NSERC, although their support will not count as match. To ICE, the Ministry of Research and Innovation in Ontario has been very progressive in supporting major research initiatives within this province, and we hope that they and their counterparts across the country will contribute. The federal biodiversity agencies have indicated that they will send a memorandum to Cabinet next March and request a substantial infusion for a large biodiversity program, and one element of it would be this ICE. And the provincial biodiversity agencies might well also contribute. So those collectivity of agencies, we hope, would contribute this amount. And we hope that Genome Canada would contribute a matching amount. But this will require on the collective international community raising another $50 million. Timelines. We're under tight timelines if we want to see this money move forward in some reasonable period. I exhorted those individuals who are attending this meeting, the national representatives, see what they could try and do to establish national committees. So I think we will hear some progress report over the next couple of days on that issue. We're meeting here on this inaugural workshop of this initiative, and I hope that after this meeting people will feel enthused and return to their home nations and say, let's get going, let's get our national committees seriously involved. We hope to circulate the workshop report July 15th. It may trickle a week or two later, but we hope to deliver that to you. Stephen, I know we give you an extra week or so, but we're hoping for a workshop report about June 15th. We're hoping that everyone doesn't just relax, but go back to your nations and begin to talk to local funders. We're hoping that by November 1st there's a declaration at least of intent. And I have received 2 such letters of intent even in advance of this meeting, one from Mexico and one from Argentina, from the presidents of the National Research Councils, indicating the intent of their nation to become involved. Drafting the proposal, science workshops in November. I think at some point in time we're going to have to reconvene as targeted groups talking about what is most important to do on plants, what's most important to do on fungi, and individual nations need to decide what they feel are their priorities. So science plan has to start bubbling up through workshops, and we've already applied for money to help fund some elements of those workshops within Ontario. Drafting a proposal, there'll be a couple of months to draft a proposal. Proposal reviews, agencies reviews. September 1st of next year, we're sort of hoping there would be a decision. Let's go forward. And pre-activation time, January 1, 2009. We're off and running in 2014. We've done our 500,000 species. Wouldn't that be nice? So the project, Barcode of Life, it's an international consortium initiative, was motivated by Genome Canada, but Genome Canada and Canada can't do it alone. This is a very international activity. And it was sort of nice to see a vote of confidence from Nature earlier this year when Linnaeus was there. Nicely decorated with a barcode. So thank you.